Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today, going to be talking about a very highly anticipated sci-fi film in The Creator. So, let's get into it. So I had some anticipation going into this one, just being a completely original and new sci-fi film with John David Washington in it. I'm a big fan of him. I'm not a huge fan of Gareth Edwards, the director. I have seen his previous films. I have seen his Godzilla movie, and I've seen quite a bit of Star Wars Rogue One. And I have to say, I'm not really a big fan of either of those films. I think they're okay. I don't hate them. I don't love them. They're just kind of in the middle there. But with The Creator, with its concept and this original idea and all of this world building that it looked like it was going to present, I got pretty excited for this one just on that alone. Now, in some ways, I am a little bit disappointed, but I did come out of this movie enjoying it. Probably more than his previous films, but I'm still not quite there yet. I'm not really crazy passionate about this movie. But let me just start by saying the things that it really needed to get right, it does, especially in sci-fi. You need excellent world building that this just provides in spades. You have this whole lore that is going on between these AI and the human race, and it's kind of relevant to what we're going through now. I mean, that was the whole point of the whole writer's strike. It was about AI kind of taking credit and taking jobs away from writers, and they needed to be protected. And while this is a big sci-fi concept and the scale is much larger, it still feels quite relevant to the world we live in today in some ways. A real telltale sign of good world building is where you're not having to constantly explain what's going on or what happened in the past. It's just kind of showing you. And that's what this does. It doesn't spend a crazy amount of time trying to explain everything that happened in the past. It does a little bit in the beginning just to give you enough to go, but from there it just kind of plays into the movie itself, and I really enjoyed that. It makes the world building a lot more digestible, and it's just the most perfect way in terms of presenting all of these new concepts and the dynamics between characters in this world. And that leads me into the next point. The characters in this are quite great, especially the main two. I think John David Washington as the lead is absolutely phenomenal. As I said, I'm a big fan of his work in the past, and he just keeps that going here. He's a great leading man in a movie like this, and he knocks it out of the park, I think. Someone who I wasn't expecting to steal the show at all, though, was Madeline Una Voiles as Elfie. This is, I believe, her first performance, and by God, she is more talented than 99% of people already. She's 9 years old, and she just kills it in this movie with some true scene-stealing moments. The screenplay asks quite a lot of her in terms of providing emotion and really relying on just the look in her eyes, and she just kills it. It's just crazy how talented this little girl is, and Gareth Edwards, props to him, he did a fantastic job in directing this performance. Then you have this story progression, which does feel awfully like The Last of Us, and I'm fine with that because I don't think that tale gets told all too often, so when it does, it still feels fresh. It doesn't feel too derivative, and I really enjoyed when we focused on the dynamics of Joshua with Elfie. They just really clicked together. These two performers had great chemistry on set. They really play off each other nicely. They hit the big emotional moments that they need to, and they hit comedic moments when they need to as well. And when we stayed within that pocket of focusing on this relationship and watching it progress over time, that was where the real strength of this film lied. Not in all the big scope. That definitely helps. It definitely creates a really interesting world. But just to see these characters inhabit this world and figure out more about them was more interesting to me than all of the other stuff surrounding it. You also have these warring nations of this new Asia country, or I guess Asia the continent, versus the United States. the United States is completely against AI due to something that happened in the past, and New Asia is all for progressing and building more, and that leads to a lot of conflict between the nations, and it plays out all throughout the movie. I really liked it. It does add a lot of tension to the movie, and it helps with so much of the world building. I do wish, however, that it was presented a little bit more effectively, because there were moments where you just didn't really care about some of these elements. And then technically, this is absolutely superb. The visual effects are stunning. It kind of reminds us that you don't need a $300 million budget to produce excellent visual effects. If you have a good director who understands how to utilize visual effects, then you're going to get a good quality result out of this. And that's what happens. It's just seamless. You don't notice anything. And that is the hallmark of great visual effects. I truly do think that that aspect of this film is highly, highly deserving of an Oscar nomination, and it could contend for the win. Truly, it is stunning. Now, with all of those positives out of the way, I do want to talk about the things that hold this back from being something that I think could have been a masterpiece, because I do see the bones in there to be a masterpiece. I think that if this film was directed by a Christopher Nolan, a Denis Villeneuve, or a James Cameron, someone like that, I think we would have gotten there. But because we have Gareth Edwards, there are just certain moments that really stop this from reaching its full potential, I think, even though he does bring so much to the table. Firstly, I think the editing was a little strange. It hurts the pacing a ton. It tries to emulate Christopher Nolan with all of these flashbacks and then going back to what's happening in the present and making them connect with each other. It just does not work like a Christopher Nolan film at all. I think it just hurts the pacing so much. It takes you away from the action to go into something that I think could have all been told in one segment to really give you context for the character, and then we move on. But instead, we're going away from the action to something that just doesn't feel that essential to me. It also has a tendency to over-explain everything, certain characters that pop up, certain moments in the characters' lives. It just wants to keep beating you over the head with it, and it does feel like at times that Gareth Edwards does not trust the audience to figure this all out. And I don't think that this film is incredibly complex, so I really think we could have done away with that. Then you just have some baffling things that just make me question why that was put in there, and makes me think about things that I really shouldn't be. For example, there's just a scene where a robot, not an AI that looks humanoid, a full robot is smoking, and it's just, why would a robot need to do that? We understand why humans have a desire to smoke, but with robots that are just fully robotic, it just makes no sense. And it's just making me question why that choice was made, apart from it looks kind of cool. But all of those are really small criticisms compared to the thing that I think really hurt this movie, which was it felt like it was building towards this emotionally charged conclusion that kind of wraps up this dynamic really well and really hits all of those big emotional beats it's looking for. And then it goes on for another 20 minutes and has this big action set piece. And when we hit that, I'm sorry, I just didn't care at all. I just completely just shut off and was like, I'm done with this movie. We had hit that moment, and it could have gone on for 5 to 10 more minutes just to wrap things up and give us all those nice little moments that we're looking for. And then credits roll and we're done. But no, we get this big action set piece that tries to go into a more saving the world narrative rather than keeping it nice and tight in terms of focusing on this relationship. I think if we focus on characters and relationships, it just creates a more satisfying film rather than, oh, we need to go save the world or we need to stop this entire war. I think when it goes to that level, it just kind of gets out of its own depth, I think. And that last 20 minutes really hurt the experience for me. And by the time we hit those credits, once again, I just was left questioning why that decision was made. and I ultimately just did not care for that ending. But look, overall, I do think The Creator is a good movie. I do recommend it to you. It's very accessible for such an original and unique kind of concept with all of these nice ideas. Very easy to see, very digestible. I think that a lot of people will enjoy it. It's not a top tier sci-fi. I compare a lot of sci-fi films now to Dune, which to me is the pinnacle of sci-fi right now, and it just isn't that at all. And that's probably unfair. I understand that. The budget is not that large. It's just trying to be just something really cool in the sci-fi space, and I appreciate that. And I like that it went there. And honestly, I want to see more films like this in every genre. Original ideas, doing new things. Yes, it can take certain beats from genres, that's fine. But giving us new characters, not relying on IP. I love that. And I'm going to give this movie a 3.5 out of 5 because I do think it was good. Apart from these hiccups and an ending that I just didn't really enjoy, I had a good time with this. Anyway, those are my thoughts towards The Creator. Let me know what you think about this movie in the comments below. I've seen a lot of mixed reactions, so I'd really like to know what you think. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.